Howdy y'all, and welcome to the Game Show Global Esports Cup C Group Stage number 1. This is going to be the upper bracket. Whoever wins this is safe, I'm pretty sure, to move on in the tournament. Pang5 versus Gse7en. It's a best of one. Anything can happen, and right now we're already well underway into the draft. As both of these teams, it feels like they know what they want, and they've shown us how well they can play already today. Pang in particular taking a brutal victory in their first series of the day, ending with a kill score of 21-0, crushing, absolutely crushing. And Gse7en no slouches either. They made a Medusa work, and props to them. I really had fears for the deuce of that game. She was against a Beastmaster who built Necrobook and a Diffusal Blade PL, but somehow they managed it, mostly off of the back of a Tusk and Spirit Breaker. We're going to see Tusk banned out in the first stage. Spirit Breaker is still available, but it looks unlikely that Pang at least will pick him up, but maybe Gse7en want the Darkseer Spirit Breaker combination. Oh no, we're actually going to see it for Pang. Interesting. All Spirit Breaker is being very highly prized. A lot of the other teams and the other regions have put less priority on picking up the Spirit Breaker this early on, but I think it's still a reasonable pick for Pang and synergizes nicely with an aggressive playstyle that we got to see in their first game of the day. That said, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to play as aggressively since nothing went wrong in that first game. And I think Gse7en will be able to put a much greater fight up, and with the Darkseer already under their belt are in a pretty good situation to do it. I think the Winter Wyvern here for Gse7en would be a really nice pickup. Stops kills from the Spirit Breaker from happening, combos really nicely with the Darkseer, and in general, a very good and solid support pick. But as far as what else it could be, there's still any number of picks available in the pool for Gse7en, and they'll settle on the Shaker. Akin to the Winter Wyvern is going to offer AoE follow-up to the Darkseer, a big wombo combo ultimate to throw in the mix, especially once you have Blink on both the Shaker and the DS. But unlike the Wyvern, is going to give you a little bit more reliable way to cancel Spirit Breaker's charge, which is always something to keep in mind when against that hero, and is going to give the Earthshaker a little bit more of a selling point, although his laning stage is a tad bit weaker. As we move into the next banning stage, Doom will be taken out by Gse7en, and now Pang5 need to consider their next couple of bans. I'd expect a lot of focus to be on the mid lane, although Doom probably not going to be seen in that mid role. I think that's where most of the teams are going to be settling on with their next couple of picks. Shadow Fiend ban coming out from Pang would make complete sense. Or maybe ban out something different right now to ensure that you're able to get the cream of the crop mid-hero for yourself. It's going to be a Winter Wyvern ban, still would have been incredibly good for Gse7en, although maybe a tad damage light in their supports. Winter Wyvern and Earthshaker do need a lot of levels before their nukes hit at any decent damage level, but still you could make up for that just by picking up like a Gyrocopter or another safe laner that can contribute. Still would have been a very potent choice for Gse7en, and would have made it almost impossible for Pang to push high ground. Darkseer, Earthshaker, Winter Wyvern, some of the best at holding inside such close quarters if you're not super far behind, which might end up being the case, given the fact that their laning stage would be a little bit more passive, but we'll have to see. Shadow Fiend the ban from Gse7en, and now Pang are going to have to consider what they want to pick up. I think they'll ban either Wind Ranger or TA and then pick up the other. Templar Assassin in particular would work pretty nicely for the Pang5 side in their mid lane spot, and something that would be very hard for Gse7en to punish, although there are still counters available in the pool, especially counters to the defensive refraction charges. They're going to take their merry time, as is very common at this juncture inside the draft, because this is where you have to show your cards, or at the very least, you have to try very hard to hide them if you're going to pick up your other support. And considering this next ban and pick is very crucial for the draft as a whole, what do Pang want to settle on? Right now, Gse7en are a little bit physical damage light, and something that could be on Pang's mind would be a Huskar pick. Comboed with the Dazzle would be amazing, but I think they'd pick it up 4th if they're going to pick it up at all. And if it's still available in the pool, Gse7en would probably ban it out 5th, so it would have to be a 4th pick Huskar if they want to go for it. Less than 50 seconds remaining as Pang will ban out the Wind Ranger And let's see. How good was my prediction? Are they going to pick up the Templar Assassin here, or are they going to pick up another support? Could be either. Rubik pick here for Pang would be really nice, giving that telekinesis to pull Darkseer after he surges away, allows you to kill him in the laning stage, but more importantly, getting a Stolen Fissure on your side is incredible. Absolutely incredible. One of the best spells in the game to have. The only limiting factor for Fissure is its cast time, and when you steal it as Rubik, that's a moot point. Either of those options would be completely fine for Pang, but they could have something altogether different in mind here. But they are going to go for the Templar Assassin, secure their mid laner, and I think that's a reasonable choice for them. Most of the combinations, Earthshaker +1, find it difficult to kill Templar Assassin, as often she's going to have the defensive refraction charges up before that combo is going to kill her off. And in general, on the dire side, Templar Assassin is very attractive to get those ancient stacks in bottom while you're securing the rune, farm those up later, accelerate your farm, and then have access to Roshan. You can very easily solo it as the Templar Assassin, and with a little bit of help, or just to pick off on the map, you can take down those objectives like nobody's business. Gse7en now, going to pick up the Disruptor for themselves. Another big hero to combo up with the Darkseer's Vacuum spell, the Vacuum Kinetic Field, Static Storm, Earthshaker, Echo Slam, Fissure, all on top of it. It's absolutely amazing. But what these supports do lack is damage. Earthshaker and Disruptor has a little bit of poke early, and Fissure damage isn't bad, but it's also not that great. Gse7en need to make sure that they have some real heavy hitters in their safe lane and mid-roll, or else they might just end up losing outright. Pang are going to pick up the Gyrocopter, one of the heavy hitters that would have worked very nicely for Gse7en themselves. Then they're going to go ahead and pick up the Razor. Under normal circumstances, I don't like the Razor pick that often, but as a lane counter to the Templar Assassin, it is very good. And even if Pang decide to shake things up, feeling that Templar Assassin versus Razor is too bad for them to go into that lane, Gyrocopter versus Razor isn't much better, although I'll say it is maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Gyrocopter's ability to lane against Razor is pretty much moot, so Templar Assassin is just going to have to suck it up and go against one of the worst lanes that TA can match up against. The reason why this is so bad is Razor has static link, and Templar Assassin has no way to nuke down creep waves. The only way that she's going to CS is through right click, and she has to get very close in order to do that to a fairly low range hero Templar Assassin. We might even see TA start out boots first in order to mitigate the effects of the static link coming out from Razor instead of Wraithband or just straight up Bottle Rush is something that you can consider. Last ban from Pang is going to be Ember Spirit, another one of those heroes that would have been able to hold their own very nicely with just experience. It offers a lot of damage, even though it isn't nearly as bursty as Templar Assassin or even Gyrocopter. It's still very potent and combos very nicely with the Darkseer. Now Gse7en, last ban coming out from them. Looks like we're looking for another support for Pang, or maybe an offlaner. If they were going to pick up a support silencer could work wonders for Pang, as Gse7en are very reliant on being able to combo their spells together inside these team fights to make it all happen, and that extra silence delaying anything would be very nice. But they are going to mount the Rubik, that would have been wonderful too. I already touched on how great Rubik is against Earthshaker and in lane against the Darkseer, so that's a very understandable ban. Across the board, I think Pang's lineup is good, but maybe their lanes are going to suffer against this Razor in particular. How do they help this Templar Assassin do well, or how do they apply pressure to make sure Razor just doesn't have a field day? Gse7en still are lacking that crucial piece of the puzzle. Their fifth pick, the hero that really does need to tie this all together, and I think it needs to be a very smashy safe lane farmer, but who is left for them? Maybe something like a Luna could be interesting, just to take down the towers as quick as possible to push the advantage that Razor should be getting against the Templar Assassin in the mid lane. Less than 30 seconds on the reserve time for Pang as they consider this fifth pick. Could be any number of things, if I'm honest. There are a lot of different avenues for them to go down. The Spirit Breaker could be played as support, could be played in the dual lane. A Night Stalker pick for Pang would be very scary, I'd say, against Gse7en. Right now, the Earthshaker and Disruptor, if they get silenced at night, will probably just get beat down, but it's going to be a Queen of Pain instead for Pang. This functions on two levels. This could have been that safe lane farmer for Gse7en that offers a good amount of damage that combos well with the Darkseer. So it works as a deny pick, but also works pretty well for Pang's side in their offlane role. Although there is the glimpse and the fissure to lock her down and make it difficult for Queen of Pain to escape in the laning stage, Blink is usually long enough range before Disruptor gets about level 5 to where he's able to reliably get that glimpse off, and the damage light nature of their supports would make things complicated. A hero I would have really liked to see for Pang's offlane would be Enchantress, although we're going to see the Dusa again. For G7, we saw a very early game-centric build in the last match with this Dusa, and fresh off a victory there, they're going to put their faith again in this hero. I have a lot of hesitation for the Dusa, I'm not going to lie, but it was played well in their last game, so let's see if they're able to pull it off again. The Darkseer-Dusa combination is real, and we'll be moving on to this game. It's really hard to call who's going to be the victor here, as I don't have a good read on who's better individually. I err towards G7 just because I've seen them play a lot more, but Pang are going to be running with the momentum after a very convincing victory. That said, neither of these teams will be eliminated even if they do lose this match, and will be able to stick around inside the tournament. Well, let's go ahead and change overlays. We should be loading in shortly, although right now it looks like we're having some sort of connection issues. But across the board, it does feel like Pang have the better team comp. Right now, their lanes look solid, their ability to transition to objectives is good, their ganking power is strong, and they have a slight edge over G7 in all of those respects. But because of raw skill level of the players, I'd say that G7 still have a good chance of taking this, and the advantage is only slight for Pang5. Disconnected is an awkward timing. I suppose I can go ahead and introduce our players on the Radiant side. Che is going to be handling the Dusa, Kenji on the Disruptor, Leo on the Razor, Darkseer by ST, leaving Wads to handle the Earthshaker as soon as he loads in. On the Dire side, Dazzle is going to be played by Sakri, Max on the Spirit Breaker, Bastard on the Templar Assassin, by Baby Grand on the Queen of Pain, and Vexus will be the last member of their team, still having yet to load in. Well, this is going to be quite something. I didn't actually mention what hero Vexus is going to be playing. It's a Gyrocopter. I'm sorry about that. The Gyro should be doing just fine. I don't see this Darkseer being able to pressure him too much. There's not a good aggressive duo that they can go for. The Earthshaker Darkseer lane is awkward at best and won't be able to accomplish much of anything. And the Dazzle should mean that no matter what the Darkseer throws out at the Gyro, he should be just fine. One of the big X factors for Pang is the Spirit Breaker. I get the feeling that he's going to start out the lane with the Queen of Pain down towards bottom, and once they both get level 2, then the Spirit Breaker can roam out towards other lanes and also will help secure Queen of Pain that too. By herself, Queen of Pain could get zoned out by G7 supports, even though they are a little bit damage light. If she goes for Shadow Strike 1 or is forced to use her Blink, is very vulnerable and still is going to run into difficulty, but Spirit Breaker is just a huge hunk of meat that they can throw between them and the supports. It's almost immovable. 5 armor, 700 HP. Deuce is not going to be able to put much of a dent in that. They'll hardly be able to scratch the surface of that tanky Spirit Breaker. I don't know what the delay is. Hopefully everybody's going to get in here fine, but well, I guess I'll take this time to shout out to the sponsors, Dota 2 Lounge, esportsgaming.com in particular, and you'll see the logos of most of the sponsors over in the side, over the quick buy area as well. This is the Azubu Game Show channel number 2, GameShow _D2EN_2, and I'll be your host, Grant SV, here for this game and many more to come. As far as how the schedule rests afterwards, we're going to have the loser of the first 2 series against each other coming up next. And right now I'm just reading some messages behind the scenes to make sure that everything is happening as it should. I don't think the lays will come as a huge surprise to anybody in particular, as they're fairly normal in most regions of Dota, but Southeast Asia in particular. Akmalip versus Underminer will be coming up next, and after that, whoever loses this match will be going on to face the winner of that one. The top 2 teams inside this group will be moving on. I believe that's the only time we're going to be seeing these players, and in a best-of-1 format, anything can happen We'll have to see who's going to reign supreme inside this group. Both G7 and Pang5 coming off of very convincing victories. I'd be really interested to hear why G7 settle on this Dusa pick so often. It feels like a signature G7 hero because right now Dusa is very middling. A lot of the other carries come online much sooner and able to contribute in a much more meaningful fashion. Although the big teamfight ultimate from Stonegaze is nice, compare her to a Gyrocopter, compare her to an Ember Spirit, they seem to do a lot more with just the levels. And Dusa takes more time to come online, but we saw the Phase Drums Aquila, Yasha, Scotty build. She was battle ready from a much earlier time than we usually see Dusa's Battle Dusa build. We'll have to see if we have that again. I feel you, Dazzle. I feel you. Right now, we're currently in just a little bit of a sad state, as we don't get to watch Dota, and that's what we all came here for, or at least I expect you did. Outside of watching good Dota, I suppose there is always the allure of betting on these games. I believe they're live on esportgaming.com as well as on Dota 2 Lounge. And I know for sure that D12 is hosting this game. I don't really have much else to talk about. These drafts, at least the draft coming up from the Dire team, is pretty par for the course. One that you're going to see time and time again. Lane matchups, I already kind of gave you a glimpse of what might happen in theory, but until we see how everybody matches up, there's not much more to read into it. So I suppose this is time to take a look at the cosmetics on these zeros. Queen of Pain, looking pretty plain, if I'm honest. Although she does have items in all of her slots, it's not anything too crazy. Minimalist is always reasonable. It's a very interesting color. Templar Assassin rocking the Immortal. And the Tale of the Secret Order. Also, I believe she does have the Mask of Third Insight, which should give her the purple blades inside the Immortal. They do stack the effects. Pretty cool there. But nothing super interesting to talk about. Yeah. Cosmetic game on G7's side is pretty weak. Disruptor has a couple, Darkseer has a couple, but nothing too game-breaking, and Deuce, surprisingly enough, has none. Especially for playing it so often. I would have thought they'd get more. Right now, Leo is going to say that they're still trying to get their shaker inside this game. Hopefully it's not going to be too much longer. This is one of the times where I really wish I had a co-caster, and unfortunately enough for this game I won't, but in the future I'll have Lyrical Gangster on these Southeast Asian games. You might have seen him on some BTS coverage of the Frankfurt Major qualifiers, and it'll be a pleasure to have him here, but right now he's working on other things. This is a very inconvenient time for American gamers and American casters in general. Oh yeah, the sun's just coming up. I've been casting for give or take 3 hours already. And hopefully we'll be able to keep the games rolling. But right now we're at a screeching halt. Excuse me for a second, I'm going to take a drink. Nothing's happening and you're not really missing anything except for this beautiful pause screen. In fact, maybe it's time that we just pull out some elevator music while we wait for this pause to subside because nothing is happening at all. Nice. It looks like you've been saved from the elevator music because something's happened. And that something is that the Earthshaker is loaded in. But it looks like the Darkseer and the Earthshaker have swapped. Wads is going to be playing on that Shaker. Actually, no. They didn't swap, but I did see their portraits change places. Maybe I'm just seeing things. Maybe it is just early. Who knows? Alright. Maybe you didn't get saved from the elevator music after all. Looks like we're still waiting for Pang. Pleasantly just waiting here as we await our last player to connect. It'll be the gyrocopter played by Vexus. I'll stop talking. Listen to the beautiful xylophone in the background. That's not the right way to go. Dusa, get back in here. We don't need somebody else to wait for. Hiding behind Disruptor, I see. There you are. Well, I'd love to stop the elevator music, but we don't have the Dusa back now, so the elevator music stays. Unfortunately, I don't speak what looks like Tagalog, but hey, we have the Dusa reconnected. We're going to get back into this game, and just to reorient you, this is currently the Game Show Global Esports Cup C Group Stage number 1, Gse7en versus Pang5 in the upper bracket. Whoever wins now is safe. They stay in the tournament, and they're good to go as they progress forward. And good to go when ready is called out by the Darkseer, and I suppose since we've been away from this for so long, we can reintroduce everybody. Kenji going to be playing on the Disruptor, Che on the Dusa, Leo on the Razor, Wads on the Shaker, ST on the Darkseer will round out your lineup for Gse7en, Bastard on the Templar Assassin, Max on the Spirit Breaker, Gyrocopter by Vexus has finally graced us with his presence, Dazzle by Sakurai, and Queen of Pain by My Baby Grand. It's going to be the Dire team. Pang5 will be taking that side of the map. Right now, it looks like Queen of Pain is prepared to go against a Darkseer, opening up with 8 tangos to deal with a little bit of that Ion Shell harass here and there as they look for a proper aggressive tri-lane. The aggressive tri-lane coming out from Pang5 is by no means bad, but I think the fact that they really do need like level 2 or 3 before they can get aggressive is going to hinder them a little bit. Maybe they'll decide to switch things up, but for now this is going to give their Queen of Pain a little bit more room. Bottom rune spot should be fairly heavily contested by the Dire team, or not. They're going to decide against it. They've spotted a couple enemy heroes walking past this ward. They know it's going to be a big skirmish, and it looks like they want to avoid that. Just trade one bounty rune for one bounty rune. No harm, no foul. The Templar Assassin will be propelled towards her bottle as quickly as possible. She buys a circlet and is going to send that out to herself. Very interesting that she gets the circlet here instead of going straight for the bottle, and the boots that I mentioned maybe against the Razor would help them out a lot. Razor should be her lane opponent. By default, this is a great lane for the Razor, but with the second point into the side blades and with maxed out refraction can still CS, although it is going to be much more difficult than your usual Templar Assassin lanes. Her bottle is going to be very quick. Even after buying the circlet, the courier will go ahead and walk safely back home as everybody settles down into their lanes. Aggressive tri-lane with the Spirit Breaker is a bit awkward until Max gets level 2, but once you have level 2 on the Barathrum, you could very easily find yourself kills with the added effect of having the bash. The Disruptor and the Earthshaker are not very well equipped to deal with this tri-lane, and more than anything, it's going to stop Dusa from farming. The Gyrocopter is going to take a good amount of damage here as the Thunderstrike will be dropped onto him and a lot of right-click damage, but Max can almost completely zone them out, and there's just not much the Dusa can do about this. Even if they don't get kills, Pang5 will be very happy with their bottom tri-lane. My Baby Grand pushed under tower with a lot of those iron shells. We'll be able to sustain with the tangos, and across the board, it looks like Pang are going to be pretty happy, with the exception being the Templar Assassin, but for now, the TA is doing fine. The static link for the Razor hasn't felt like it's done anything at all. If it's even been cast, I'm not sure. And Bastard has been able to get a good amount of CS, 4 and 3 compared to 2 and 4 from the Razor, a deny fest in mid lane. The Razor actually opts for a point in his passive early on. The only benefit I can see from this is the fact that it'll give him a little bit more movement speed, but already with boots, the Templar Assassin in fact not going for that bottle, I like it quite a bit, will mean that Razor's link is going to be significantly less impactful in this lane. Although traditionally looked at as a lane disadvantage, I think the Templar Assassin has the edge now based on how the early bit of this has gone in her favor. Now she's going to have a very fast ball, can spam with those refractions, and down towards bottom lane, Gyrocopter dropping low. But they won't be able to finish the deal. Salving up Gyrocopter will be just fine, and they have level 2 on their heroes. Bash is now up for the Spirit Breaker, and they could very easily get kills if they isolate one of these supports. Gse7en supports are going to be very underleveled for a long time. They have no access to their pulls. Dire's vision inside the enemy side of the map is perfect right now. Sentry will, I believe, block out the camp over here, but not the large camp, and this ward will block out the small camp too. Even if they had Sentry money, they wouldn't be able to successfully get the D wards on them with only one Sentry ward. The Disruptor has one remaining, but that's just not something they can count on. Dazzle also has level 2. If they want to go for a dive, Shallow Grave would be available, and it looks like they might go for this dive shortly. It would be First Blood on the Disruptor, and he goes for Kinetic Field level 2. Kinetic Field might be able to buy himself some space, but if he shows here, the Disruptor is in a bit of trouble. A bit of trouble indeed. The Dire team are going to catch eyes on the little Dragon Man. Now they're going to go into him. They have a fissure here, and it is going to connect, and a couple of tower shots will be tanked by Max. Spirit Breaker dropped to about half HP, but won't end up going down just yet. The aggression coming out from Pain has been stymied. Although they're not very good damage supports, Earthshaker and Disruptor are very good at punishing those dives, so Pang5 are going to be forced to play a little bit more passively. Up in the top lane, Queen of Pain versus the Darkseer. Right now it's fairly even. It'll probably stay that way for quite some time. Darkseer getting a little bit of extra farm acceleration inside this large camp as he farms that up on the side. Queen of Pain can't really do that, but we'll be able to CS in lane nicely. Has 900 gold for her person. Mid lane, large link onto the Templar Assassin. Now we get to see that counter come into play now that the boots are up for the Razor. With 2 points up in the link, 63 damage stolen, even with refraction bonus, the Templar Assassin can't even put up a significant fight for those creeps if Razor's appropriately using his DPS. 14-12 compared to 10-9. This is an advantage for the Razor, but I don't think anybody's super surprised about it. Templar Assassin's doing fine for herself, and the way she comes back into this game is by getting some ancient stacks up, which right now are going to be prepared by Max. Bastard will find himself the rune down towards bottom lane. It's a bounty rune. Unfortunately for him, he would have really liked to have the DD. That would have helped out a lot against the Razor and being able to get some farm in lane. But still, Pang are doing fine, especially on this Gyrocopter and Queen of Pain, to make up for the fact that Templar Assassin is having less of a fun experience in the laning stage. The aggressive potential from both of these sides is limited. Although Spirit Breaker does have the ability to roam around globally, Razor's a really tough sell to get that kill. He'll just link up either you or the Templar Assassin, then your damage output's almost nil, and up towards top, killing up the Darkseer is going to rely on the Queen of Pain getting a lot of chip first, and she's constantly under tower, so Darkseer's not even going to be showing his face that often. This other stack up for the Templar Assassin is going to help, but it feels like Spirit Breaker's losing a lot of the timing window that he'd like to be aggressive, and instead is going to help out the rest of his team. Gyrocopter's been left alone by his two supports, but the Radiant team don't necessarily know that. We'll take a look at their vision right now, and they do have pretty good vision. Maybe they'll be able to get a kill on this Gyrocopter, but they need a good fissure block. Without the fissure block, I don't think it's happening, and they don't even have mana for the snake coming out from the Dusa. Their damage just isn't sufficient. Top lane, the Darkseer will get a surge away. Will he be able to survive? The blink is on cooldown for 9 seconds, and it looks like Darkseer will buy himself some space. Trying to TP out the Scream, not going to be there. Although she did have the mana for it, didn't have the vision appropriate, and Darkseer will be able to escape. But he's forced all the way off the lane, down towards bottom lane. The Rock Brush, the Flat Cannon, First Blood drawn by Vexus. as he finds himself the disruptor, but the Mystic Snake crunching down the gyrocopter, charging forward onto the Deuce. The Spirit Breaker's coming all the way from the top lane. Poison Touch, Dazzle will be able to get this kill on the enemy safe lane carry. 6 charges, it looks like Deuce will survive for a little while longer, but it is slowly ticking down. Mana Shield, is that enough to keep you alive? 15 HP, she will survive. Zachary now turned upon Wads, looks for the Enchant Totem, smack, glimpse back, Shallow Grave is only going to delay the inevitable. Spirit Breaker goes for a charge, but he cancels. Oh no, the Spirit Breaker tried to help his Dazzle instead of going for the kill, and now Max is in a bit of trouble. Caught up by the Kinetic Field and the Fissure. The Spirit Breaker is going to go down to a couple more right clicks. If they could actually get them off with stick charges, he's going to survive. Rocket Barrage, a full Rocket Barrage into Wads, and the Earthshaker is going to run for his life. He gets the Enchant Totem, and now the Darkseer joining the fray. A massacre in the bottom lane, but nobody's actually dying yet. Ooh, they'll go for the charge over onto the Darkseer, but with Iron Shield, they have to decide better of it. The Earthshaker and the Medusa surviving on little amounts of HP. The Ion Shield damage, Vexus will go down, but in trade for the Darkseer's life, a 1-for-1 at the tail end of it. Disruptor with no more mana can't get the Spirit Breaker down, and now Dazzle's joining the fray. Can they get vision onto the Disruptor? Right now they don't have the vision. Instead they're going to go towards the Razor in mid. That passive from Razor is going to proc, but it's already been procced, and now Max is going to have to cancel tanks, tower shots, has the heal from the Dazzle, will be able to back off there, as the aggression coming out from Pang is relentless. They'll look for the Plasma Field over onto the Spirit Breaker, not going to be lethal. Spirit Breaker will get the Bounty Rune too. A little bit of extra help there, trying to run away. The level 2 glimpse, is it in range? Running straight into the Deuce. So they have the glimpse if they need this, but they probably don't. Body blocks from the Deuce, they have more than enough stolen damage to get this kill. Although Jar comes in, the Sonic Wave over 3. The Queen of Pain looks to make the turn, but she's glimpsed all the way back behind the tier 1 tower. The Lucid Disruptor in turn, the poison damage on the Razor is lethal. A 2-for-1 trade that Pang will be happy for, but it is going to buy some space for the Darkseer. That said, it's still completely worth it for Queen of Pain to make that play. 642, the gold swing for their side is a net losses there for Gse7en, even though they kill the Spirit Breaker. Gyrocopter's now going to rotate up towards top lane. It feels like Queen of Pain, with the extra experience she's got in lane, is now going to start killing stuff. She's level 8. Her burst combination for this stage of the game is at its peak. Although she won't have her ultimate for 100 seconds, is an absolute menace across the field with just the blink scream. 4-4 is our kill score. This game is already a lot closer than the other two we've seen today. Dire getting an advantage on their cores, and Radiant getting a little bit of an advantage on their supports. And if we take a look at the Dazzle, is really struggling. But then again, the Spirit Breaker is doing a little bit better than the Shaker. It's still anybody's game. The difference between the top farmer and the 6th farmer in this game is only a couple hundred gold. And in the grand scheme of things, that means very little. It just depends on how this next fight goes. And Max is going to open things up with a charge on Deuces. She's already at half mana. The Earthshaker is there, trying to look for the Fissure. Will drop the Fissure, but ends up getting bashed. The Mana Snake onto Max will drop him low, but in the meantime, Dazzle will die, presumably in the mid lane, to the Razor and company. Across the map, it's a fairly even exchange, although that kill recap, the fight recap, is not going to reflect that. 1-for-1, support for support, both of which aren't going to mean much in the grand scheme of things. The Razor gets a little bit of tier 1 tower damage in mid after that kill, so I suppose that's going to be a little bit nicer for Gse7en, but then again, the Dusa needs to be a little bit more careful for her life. Now the Queen of Pain is showing her face down here. The Mystic Snake, is doing work, however. The last couple bounces of that thing are brutal with the damage that they do. So Queen of Pain also needs to respect the Dusa, who is going to be going for a very similar build to what we saw last game. Drums after the Aquila and Brown Boots for her. Disruptor's made his way top. Kenji, I'm not sure if I'm entirely sold on this rotation. The Darkseer as well as the Disruptor can't by themselves kill off the Gyrocopter, especially not now if there's a Spirit Breaker charging in. A glimpse on the Spirit Breaker would very easily stop this aggression. I don't think they're going to be able to find the kill, but now that Spirit Breaker's stopped, it looks like everything's going to be a-okay. The Disruptor is going to ping that out, and although I don't think they spotted the Spirit Breaker till this ward, they got that intel, and with that, they'll be able to make the appropriate play. Mystic Snake gonna hit the Queen of Pain hard, down to less than 300 HP. Needs to be careful. One more Mystic Snake and a couple of right clicks, that's a dead Queen of Pain. If the bounces are there, it's just a straight up dead Queen of Pain with just the Mystic Snake. But the good news for Pang5 is the fact that they have a double damage TA taking out this Ancient stack. A lot of farm for the TA and some space in mid for Spirit Breaker to catch his experience and find himself level 6. That's going to be a new leap in power for Pang, and they also get the Sonic Wave up for the Queen of Pain. at a very similar timing window. It's their turn to be aggressive. It's their turn to find some kills. Although there is a smoke up for the disruptor, so maybe Kenji has another idea in mind. Gse7en just don't have the DPS right now from their heroes in order to take these fights, and Pang5 have more than enough. Gyrocopter contributes a lot, has his call down, has his rocket barrage, even with no damage items, can still do mountains of damage. Templar Assassin is naturally high when it comes to physical DPS, and then you have the Queen of Pain, who needs no further mentioning. Level 6 isn't yet there for the Spirit Breaker, so maybe they're going to have to wait until they have Nether Strike online, but I think Pang5, they have the momentum, they have the current game in their pocket. Gse7en kind of need to wait until they get this mechanism done in the Darkseer before they shake things up. If Pang5 take things too passively, that's where Gse7en can start making a lead. Their heroes do quite well if they're left to just statically farm. The Dusa, the Razor, the Darkseer all benefit from that time that they're given. Surprisingly, though, this Templar Assassins eclipsed the Razor and farm mostly due to the Ancient stack, but also CS in general is just better than that of Leo. The early laning stage might have been a little bit rough, but Razor as a pick doesn't seem like he's accomplishing the goal of pressuring the Templar Assassin, but at the very least, he'll get himself a tier 1 tower. 12-minute rune could very easily set up kills, but down towards bottom, that Mystic Snake, my goodness, that thing is insane. There's 11 wand charges on the Spirit Breaker, so he can stick around, albeit not super comfortably. Hasted Queen of Pain going to be running back towards her side of the map as she has the makings of an Aghanim Scepter. We'll be farming up in the mid lane. But Gse7en are pushing all of these lanes and making it so Pang5 are thinking twice about going for an aggressive move. That is until now. They're going to involve the Gyrocopter here. Do they have a smoke on anybody? The Dazzle doesn't have one. I don't think the Spirit Breaker does either, but they might bump into a Disruptor who is placing a T-port inside the Secret Shop that's going to spot everything. The smoke is spotted, and it looks like the Disruptor knows about it. He's going to ping it out, and now run for your life, Kenji. He's going to find it to the high ground, but charged. Queen of Pain's going to blink up to the high ground. They have the glimpse on the Spirit Breaker, but the damage is still there with the Sonic Wave from My Baby Grand. Leo's caught inside a corner, but still has a tango. We'll be able to munch his way through those trees, and with the Mystic Snake, Deuce is looking for the turn, kills off the Dazzle. 1-for-1 support trade is fine here. For the Radiant side, Rocket Barrage is there, but the vacuum back and Vex is taking so much damage. Deuce gets the double with that last right click. Max is caught out. It might be a triple kill, but Darkseer gets the last hit with the Iron Shield damage. A disaster for Pang5, mostly set up by the brave Disruptor going deep behind enemy lines to place down this ward that pays for itself and then some by spotting out that smoke. A couple of heroes will be able to TP home to safety. The Queen of Pain makes it out. The Templar Assassin also survives, but with those kills, Gse7en now with a lot more momentum under the belt. Medusa has enough gold to pick up her phase boots. If last game's build is any indicator, we'll probably go for those, although we think power treads would not be amiss this game on your Dusa will be those phase. The extra mobility that you have on Dusa is very important. The movement speed, you pop the drums, you pop the phase, then you can get in position for an ultimate that will force the enemy to react, and you can use it a lot more aggressively in that fashion. Get in front of them, force them back to run into the rest of the enemy team. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you look at the Medusa's eyes, you're just going to get right-clicked down by the Razor. And if you try to run away, you're going to get glimpsed. And in that sense, the Deuce and Disruptor have a good amount of synergy together with the ultimate and the glimpse spell. It's kind of cool to see, although it won't become super relevant until Deuce gets some major damage items up. That time is coming a lot quicker than Pang5 are comfortable with. Glimpse back onto the Queen of Pain. She has a blink, so she should be fine, and will blink back towards the creep wave and farm it up as the tier 1 tower falls to the Razor. The Templar Assassin is accelerating her farm at a pretty good rate. Still the highest farmer inside this game, but it's going into a Yasha. By no means is this a bad build on Templar Assassin, but it's not going to have the same smashy impact as a Desolator or a Blink Dagger would, although I think Blink might be a little bit weak as a first item here because you won't be able to get solo kills. So they get the kill on the Spirit Breaker. Hold that thought. Top lane, TP away by Vexus. He'll be fine. No way to cancel it. They'd already thrown the fissure. So Gyrocopter with that call down will be able to zone them out, but it really feels like Gse7en are now the ones in control, as Pang5 lost that timing window where they got those big tools online, and that last smoke ankle, though that was their attempt to make that aggressive move, came just a little bit too late and was spotted out. So that's going to be a bad indicator for the rest of this game, as Gse7en are currently playing at the tempo that they want to be, which is a slow one. Let this do some farm, let the Darkseer get his items up. Even though he has the mech and can put pressure on these towers, can group up with the team, and so can the Dusa with her drums. You don't have to, and you farm very nicely inside the woods. Charge forward onto Kenji. He has a glimpse back, however. I'm not sure if he can get this kill unless he gets the mother of all bashes. No Nether Strike available. Now Max is overextended deep behind enemy lines. Will be vacuumed back. Deuce is dominating, mostly because that Spirit Breaker just doesn't know the word stop. I can respect that. It's never something you want to do to cancel a charge, but going for a tier 1 tower for a disruptor of all things, probably not a great idea. They're going to smoke up Gse7en. They have an Echo Slam, they have a Fissure, and they want to bump the Templar Assassin. She farms Ancients. They catch Bastard. The Fissure's going to catch her on the wrong side, and she has defensive charges, but with the Echo Slam, with the enchant, it'll drop her low, but with Shallow Grave TP, can Bastard get out of here? It looks like he will. The Queen of Pain was able to throw Sonic Wave. Now the call down turnaround onto a lot of Radiant heroes, but a vacuum back Zachari's low. Vexus just can't stand to the damage here. Wads will get bashed down by Max. Nether Strike is there. The turnaround onto the Darkseer is real. 2 for 2 is the trade, as Queen of Pain's dead corpse is going to be glimpsed back up to the high ground. Gse7en find themselves a 2 for 3 and chase forward for Max again, charging towards the mid lane. Can they get the glimpse vision on him? Glimpse is on cooldown for 20 seconds anyway, so it's not going to be relevant. Still, Gse7en were the ones to come out victorious, and a lot of that comes down to how that fight started and the angle that they were coming from. Pang5 just had no great way to approach it after they got split up. You have the Queen of Pain. She drops a Sonic Wave, which is really good over a bunch of heroes in this vicinity, and the Gyrocopter's coming from the north. But by the time Gyrocopter gets there, the Queen of Pain's already backed off, and the Templar Assassin also is retreated, and he's completely alone. He gets dropped like a rock. Gyrocopter, although he does have Power Treads, Aquila, these are fine items to keep you alive, not when you're in the middle of everybody. So Vexus, just getting caught out in an awkward spot, was expecting more backup that wasn't available, as Pang5 had already been peeled apart. Gse7en now have a very farmed use of 5-0-3. Gonna go for that Yasha again. Scotty will probably be here next item if last game is any indicator. And this game, Scotty is so much more impressive. You don't have to deal with that mass amount of mana burn from the Necrobooks, from the Diffusal Blade of the PL. Che is going to be a tanky mofo on the front lines that Pang are going to find it difficult to deal with, even though they have heroes that in theory will do a lot of damage. Templar Assassin has yet to get that first DPS item, and getting in position to do damage inside these fights will also be difficult. Templar Assassin looks like she'll go for the Desolator next, but it's still 1600 gold out, and on top of that, you have the Guardian Greaves to the Darkseer. Not only is the heal super relevant, but also that mana regeneration for the Dusa is super nice, and if you get her low, the extra armor is going to make it very hard for Pang5 to kill her, because by that time, Queen of Pain should have already used her Magic Burst, and Call Down will also be on CD inside that fight. Gse7en, they're the ones in the driver's seat. Pang5 are losing farm on this Gyrocopter, and although the Helm of Dominator in theory is a great way to accelerate him, Gse7en are going to be contesting these Ancients quite often, and it shows with how the warding is happening. Pang5 want to make sure that they don't have the wards around their Ancients, but a deep ward again in the side shop is going to spot out the rotations as they go to farm that, which Gse7en can respond to. Gse7en aren't getting that many kills, but that's not what their team is designed to do. Wait until this Dusa gets 6-slotted. There's nothing really stopping you from waiting, because Pang5 aren't able to find those initiations, especially the Spirit Breaker is very unfortunately dying a lot when he tries to go for these charges, and the charges altogether have been mostly unsuccessful. Gse7, they don't have the greatest team going for Roshan, especially considering the fact that they're on the Radiant side. Sneaking it isn't an option, but just farming is just fine. And right now I think it's Pang5 that need to go for a smoke play, need to go for some sort of kill, because right now they're losing the game by the current state of things. Although the difference in net worth is leveling out and the experience advantage is very little, Pang5 have heroes that really want to be playing aggressive now, or at the very least have the potential to. By no means are Gyrocopter, Queen of Pain, and Templar Assassin late game slouches, but I find it difficult to see, once this Dusa gets Scotty plus a damage item, how they're able to kill and deal with her. Static Storm Kinetic Field combo would be dropped, though. Glimpse back the Dazzle into it as a charge forward goes on to Kenji. Nether Strike is there, bash onto this Disruptor, and they'll be able to kill him off before anything else happens. But on the sidelines, Leo starts a link over on the Gyrocopter. Not a huge one, though. Guardian Greaves will be popped. They're surging forward. Racing Hell, try to chase us on the backlines. The Echo Slam. They won't be able to stop the Spirit Breaker and Queen of Pain. Now they're going to charge forward onto the Darkseer. Another bash. Max walks through the wall, however, and will be zapped to death by Leo. The Templar Assassin trying to run away unfruitfully. This Razor doing so much on the front lines. Although Gse7en commit an Echo Slam for very little, nothing really. The Earthshaker was trying that as a desperation move under his tower to keep himself alive. doesn't matter because this Razor was unanswered. His Link wasn't even that impressive. It was only about 50 damage. But once he pops BKB, you can't kill him. There was nothing there. And also, very important, was the fact that Pang didn't use their Sonic Wave and didn't have that available for the fight. Queen of Pain really needed to find an angle to catch a lot of heroes inside that, but the exchange was so spread out that that just wasn't an option. Again, Gse7en find the small advantage inside that fight. Not to say it's the end of the world for Pang, but they really need these kills to be working out for them. And I do have to hand it to the Spirit Breaker. His luck was amazing inside that last fight. So many bashes. If they didn't get those, that fight could have gone a lot worse. And also, if the Static Storm Kinetic Field was better, it could have gone a lot worse. It speaks volumes to the state of this game that Gse7en trading 3 for 2 in their favor is not great. Like, it could have been like a 4 for 0 or a 3 for 0. Medusa now has that ultimate where her farming speed isn't stopped at all, and Pang are really losing momentum. The Templar Assassin's Desolator, however, is another avenue for them to get ahead and for them to find another foothold inside this game. Pang can take out Roshan very quickly, and also are power farming up in the Ancients, which at the very least will bring the Templar Assassin close to even with the Medusa. In fact, has a slight edge in net worth now. Oh, I really want to see them go for that Roshan play. Maybe Smoke look for a kill and then transition to Roshan. They need to keep this going at a very fast pace. Pang. This slower engagement really isn't working. They're going to Smoke with the Spirit Breaker, Templar Assassin, and Dazzle, and now look to make that move. Maybe just straight into the Roshan pit. Why wait for the pickoff if you can just outright take it? But the Darkseer's around the corner. He's going to pick himself up a Haste Rune, charged up. They have the Nether Strike. Going to have to use that now. The Desolated damage is huge, and he's going to be melded to the face with that pickup on the Darkseer. It looks like they're going to transition to the Roche pit, as they should. And the Templar Assassin with Fraction is going to kite the Roshan back a little bit further inside of his pit, and with the Meld Minus Armor, we'll be able to take this down. Earthshaker, however, has his Blink Dagger. Gse7en might be able to make a contention of this with a very well-timed Blink on a support Shaker. Wads could make this Blink Echo Slam count in a big way. They're going to smoke up and now look to make it all happen. Medusa's going to walk into pit. The Roshan's not all that low. They pop the drums and everybody is going to go their merry way. I believe that smoke might have been spotted out by one of these psionic traps around the corner, or by the ward vision that was placed down by Pang. Can't remember exactly where Gse7en smoked, but it looks like it's going to be unfruitful as both of these teams are going to fall back. Gse7en can now just go and farm their own woods. The same could be said for Pang, but although that smoke doesn't work out for them, that means a lot less for Gse7en than it would if Pang whiffed a smoke. I think their heroes are a lot more reliant on using their cooldowns and getting kills than Gse7en, who have much more linear scaling when it comes to their items, and they are going to be getting those items at a pretty good timing. Halberd looks like it's going to be next course of action for Razor, although by himself is not going to be doing that much damage. If he gets a good link off, takes that away from the Templar Assassin, that could just be the end of the fight then and there. Templar Assassin has no great way to disengage from the Razor's link. She has no BKB to stop herself from getting stunned or glimpsed back or vacuumed back or in general just being chased. Even with the Yasha, 390 movement speed is less than the Razor, and Razor also has a drums on the team to work with that isn't on the side of Pang. But a big item pickup for the Pang team is the Queen of Pain's Aghanim Scepter, which will make finding these kills a lot easier. But oh, Blink Echo, they catch the Gyrocopter. Sorry for missing out on camera, but Vexus is going to take a little bit more damage. Still not enough. He is fairly tanky. Will TP added there alive, and Echo Slam on cooldown. A little bit awkward there coming out from Gse7en. Deuce still isn't a huge major damage threat. They needed one more hero in that mix to reliably get that kill. Not the end of the world. Fissure, Blink, and Enchant Totem is still good enough, probably, to get these kills, but now DDTA is rotated in the Roshan pit. The Dire team know that Radiant don't have the greatest vision around the series since they've been dewarding, but they do have a ward that I believe spotted out the DD being picked up, and now a Fissure onto Dazzle. Sacri's stuck next to the tree, will be forced to grave, turns for his ultimate. That's about all he can do. His Templar Assassin tries to finish up this Roche. Couple more auto attacks, she gets the Roshan and the Aegis. For Dazzle's life, that's fine, but can they get Bastard out of here? He's going to lose the Aegis immediately. The cooldown hardly does anything. The damage on the Medusa is minuscule, although right now she is very low on mana. The Static Storm on top of Bastard can't do anything. The Templar Assassin will go down. Max drops the Nether Strike, gets a hit onto the Disruptor, will go down. Glimmer caping away. Max trying to run out of here, but completely out of mana and now completely out of hope. It looks like the Spirit Breaker is going to die sooner rather than later. They're going to drop an Ion Shell on this catapult, but oop, Blink Fissure. I thought they'd have a little bit more backup for this Darkseer. Now salving up Max. Are you going to live here? Are you kidding me? Vacuum back. I spoke a little too soon. He survived longer than I thought he would, but I think that mostly comes down to Gse7en just being a little bit slow to follow up their Darkseer, but they get him anyway. They have more than enough chasing power. That's going to be a really big team fight win for Gse7en, excuse me. All they lose is the Disruptor. What they get in return is the Templar Assassin's Aegis, the Dazzle, and the Spirit Breaker, all inside that fight. Although the Roshan Golden experience does go the way of Radiant team, or the Dire team, that's fine for the Radiant. And what's also fine is the fact that they kill off a Courier. Just flies right next to the Razor. And Leah's going to be able to notch that one for himself. It delivered its item, I believe it was the S&Y for the Gyrocopter. But that gold from the Courier is pretty much going to mirror the gold that was picked up by the Roshan. And Gse7en are just running away with this game. Dusa has a full Scotty 26 minutes in after Yasha, Drums, Aquila, Phase Boots. It's a very fast I have Scotty. I have very farmed to do so, even though if you're flat rushing the item or just rushing it after the Phase Boots Aquila, it would have been a little bit sooner. It doesn't really matter. Dusa's in a very comfortable place. For the amount of gold that she's invested to her item, she has about her maximum input inside these fights, and she's just impossible to bring down. If she goes for something too defensive as her next pickup, then we can start questioning Medusa's item pickup, but even if Dusa does go for a really defensive build, finishes the Manta, goes BKB, I don't even know. Maybe a Shiva's would be your defensive item on the Dusa this game against the Templar Assassin's minus armor. She'd be fine. I think the Butterfly is the next likely progression from her, and Shay will be absolutely dishing if they go for it, but the case still stands no matter what Dusa builds, she's an immovable frontline. And so is the Razor too. Yes, Halberd BKB. You just can't kill this guy. Leo has 2000 HP unless he's left alone and chain stunned. But right now the chain stun coming out from Pang, it's Spear Breaker. That's it. Their lockdown is incredibly lacking coming out from their team because they have a Dazzle as one of their supports and Queen of Pain is their offlaner. By no means are these bad picks in a vacuum, but usually you want to supplement that with some sort of other core that's going to offer you an amount of CC that will stop the Dusa from roaming free inside these fights. But yeah, even now, any amount of CC isn't enough because you just can't kill her. They're going to look for the tier 2 tower trade, but they killed the tier 2 up top way too fast, and a rainbow of TPs mid. Can they catch? Deuces on the front lines as Templar Assassin dies to the Razor. Where in the world did that happen? Sorry about that, guys. I was looking for the mid TPs. I chose my fights poorly. They were going down towards bottom and find themselves a kill. Just straight up. Templar Assassin gets caught out. That's not something that should be happening when she has the blink, the refraction, the meld, all of these ways to keep herself safe and survivable. She goes for the split push, but just wasn't quite able to do it. It looks like she stuck around too long to try and take down that tier 2 bottom. Now without the Templar Assassin, Gse7en have a significant advantage inside these fights, or a major advantage I should say. They've already had a significant one. Tier 2 tower in mid is going to be falling soon. Sonic Wave will weaken the creep wave, but the catapult still survives, and Gse7en will be able to take down this tower. Just tank it with the Dusa. Look how much damage she's taking. Next to none. Next to none. 18 armor on this hero, and Gse7en might be able to get a little bit more. I'd be hesitant to say that they can take out high ground tier, but at the very least they can get tier 3 damage for free. Like, this costs them hardly anything. They'll commit the Dusa onto the high ground, plunk the Razor there too, and drop this tower sooner rather than later. Pang are going to have another Sonic Wave cooling down in just a couple of seconds, 10 seconds to be precise. But is that going to be enough? They haven't backed off the Gyrocopter and Spirit Breaker, and their high ground's just falling. Looks like Gse7en might be able to take this one out without any scuffle. Free tier 3 for them. Maybe traded for this tier 2 top, but even then, that's defendable. But why defend it when you can just go for melee barracks? Tier 2 tower top lane at this point in the game means next to nothing. The Gyrocopter needs to be with his team, and he's going to do that now. He doesn't even get the tier 2 before coming here. He has the call down. They'll peel them off of the melee barracks, but even then, only Justin Vexus is glimpsed back towards top lane. The Gyrocopter can't do anything this fight, and this is a free melee barracks for them. Onto the backline, Stackstorm kinetic field onto 2. They're caught inside with the chainstone from the Shaker. They're all going to die. Sonic Wave over the top, way too little, too late from My Baby Grand, and the melee barracks is going to fall. Backdoor protections there, the saving grace, but only for a couple seconds as the creeps are coming up shortly, and Pang5 just can't defend. They just can't defend. Gse7en, they're going to get so many big items for this push. Even if they didn't get the barracks, they'd be looking good. But now they're looking for their second set. Templar Assassin has no buyback, can't get into this game, and it's looking close to GG as Gse7en have near enough secured their progression in the GameShow Global Esports Cup in this group stage number 1. I believe there is going to be another round of group stage for the Southeast Asia region before we decide who's going towards LAN tournaments, but this is a great step in the right direction for Gse7en, as they're currently 2 racks up. I don't think Pang5 have the team that's available to bring this back. Gse7en to my baby Grand. He'll vacuum him back, bring her down low, but with the Glimmer Cape, she might be able to blink away to safety, and she will. Shallow grave onto Sacker, trying to save his allies, not successfully, as this Razor's just stolen way too much damage. 168 by the end of it. Will whip down the Spirit Breaker. He's going to buy back, but what can you do with that buyback? Hardly anything. Even without mana, this Gse7en is stupidly tanky, and she still has 400 mana to go. Her effective HP is through the roof. What'd she buy? She has a butterfly. A full butterfly, just on the courier. Why not for Che? And they're going to be able to back out of there. Full barracks bottom, full barracks mid lane. And Pang, I think the only hope for them is Divine Rapier or Gyro, but can he actually go Divine? I don't think so. With no BKB, he's just going to get Blink Echoed in the fight, and then you give a Divine Rapier to the Gse7en, and that for sure is GG. Already a great Divine Carrier, already a hero that you can't kill, give her 300 damage to boot. It doesn't matter that it's droppable, this Gse7en is never going to drop it in her life. I think this is going to be a flawless game for the Gse7en. How do they kill her? She's 7-0-9. Even if they throw everything, and I do mean everything, literally every spell in their kit, maximum damage from every single one of them, is it enough? It relies on them not getting misses on the butterfly too. It really does. And it also relies on her being completely alone. If Che walks 1v5, they probably could do it. But she's going to have an Earthshaker behind her that can blink in, disrupt the fight. He's also going to have a Shadow Blade here, although I think that's a little bit less relevant. I would have loved to see an Blade maybe on mods. I don't know. It doesn't matter what these supports are getting because they're getting items, and the same can't be said for the poor supports on the Dire side. They have a Medallion, Brown Boots, and Magic Stick on the Dazzle. That's it. Compare his farm to the Disruptor. He has 1,300 gold on top of a Ghost Scepter, Arcane Boots, living in the lap of luxury for supports. This Earthshaker can just straight up buy a Shadow Blade. And now they're going for the high ground. They have the Aghanim Scepter delivered on the Razor, mowing through this Tier 3. Pang, fight now or forever hold your peace. If you lose Mega Creeps, that's game. They're going to blink forward. BKB pop by Vexus as well as my baby Grand. Sonic Wave is pretty good, but not good enough. They've silenced up the Spirit Breakers inside the Static Storm, and the Tempo Assassin's doing no damage. She's hardly tickling them. Although the TA is able to kill off the Disruptor, that's only by some miracle. She's hitting for 30 damage a pop. On the back lines, they are going to invis. They did bring down the Gse7en, but with an Echo Slam, they lose their Gyrocopter too. Gse7en going down is a huge surprise. I can't believe they actually accomplished it. It looks like she just got split apart away from the rest of her team as the fight breaks out on 2 fronts. And I unfortunately picked the wrong front as I looked more at the Razor and the Templar Assassin towards the left. Pang are holding, and this is huge for them. If they can keep this one going, Shiva's popped by the Darkseer, turns to see if anybody's chasing, and there is none. Right now, Pang are going to be happy that they're still inside this game, but they need Rapier money for this Gyrocopter. He has the BKB, and a 10-second BKB was crucial in letting them take that fight, but it's going to be dropping every time they make a hold. And the biggest issue for them is even though they do hold, they're not able to push outside of their base, really, and much less put pressure on the towers on the Gse7en side. Tier 2 tower up top is the only one they've been able to take, and pushing that to racks is almost impossible, although that's what Pang have to do. They need to get this top barracks. That's their first step in getting back to this game, and that needs to come back after a couple of these high ground defenses. It's going to take a lot more than just one. Gse7en, I'm sure, is going to play a little bit more with their team. If the Razor and Gse7en go into the fight as a unit and just walk up to the high ground, I think they take barracks next time. Last, it got them the Tier 3 tower. Next time, it's melee. And even if they die a couple more times after that, next time it's going to be ranged. And with it, Mega Creeps. Gse7en are going to go for round number 2 in this top lane because they can. They're going to be chasing forward, spotted up by a nicely placed Templar Assassin trap, but they get the glimpse back. Mighty Grand pops his BKB too late, although right now he will be able to back off, so even though the glimpse connects, doesn't really matter, but Sakuru's walled up by a fissure. Where are they going to focus, I wonder? Looks like they're going to go for the more reserved play and just go straight up for the barracks, although Sakuru is probably going to go down, vacuum to cancel his TP, and that is a dead, very dead Dazzle. Medusa gets the kill, and now Gse7en don't have to worry about that 5th hero for Pang, even though Dazzle's probably the least important member of their team. Now they get a glimpse back onto Vexus. He didn't pop his BKB before, now forced to pop his BKB now, but with his damage sucked out of his nose, the Razor's hitting like a truck, and he's hardly doing anything. The Queen of Pain is able to get onto the back lines, does kill off the supports, but to what end? The Gse7en and the Razor are still standing strong with that Aghanim Scepter. This is going to be Mega Creeps in just a couple of seconds. Glyph is only going to serve to delay. Pang cannot hold. And And with the G7, I think they found themselves the GG for this game. Buyback on the Shaker. This is the last hurrah. Can they kill Che? Look at how much damage they're doing. Next to nothing. Vacuum back onto 2. They'll chase forward. The Mystic Snake bounces. Max is going to fall. And now onto Vexus. Max actually does survive a little while longer. With the Glimmer Cape buys some space, but only enough space for them to be able to call it GG. With the Gyrocopter dying, their last hope of winning this game is through. And G7 will come away with a flawless day here in the Global Esports Cup. And although this game was closer than the earlier ones today, I think the G7 are just looking a lot more solid in general, and they're making this Dusa pick work. I'm very surprised, but the battle build, the phase drums Aquila, she's grouping up with the team early, getting involved in these fights, and then still being able to farm up. I think Gyrocopter would have worked better than Dusa this game, as I said last game, but you know what? Play what you're comfortable with. G7, stay G7, stick with the Dusa, and as long as it's bringing victories, you're doing fine. I've been GrandSV here on the Game Show Dota 2 EN2 channel on Azubu. Thanks for tuning in for the Global Esports Cup here. We're going to have more games as Pang5 are going to be going up against whoever wins this next series, which next series I'm talking about is, excuse me. Oh my goodness, I can't for the life of me remember the name of the teams. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Sorry about this, guys. But that is going to be Akmalip, that's the one I always keep on forgetting, versus Underminer coming up next, and I should be joined with a co-caster, so you don't have to hear just me on this channel, and my co-caster should be Lyrical Gangster. See you soon, and thanks for tuning in.